All right, let's cut to the chase here. Tariffs are back on Trump's mind, and he's dropping the big numbers this time. 10% across the board on all imports, and for China specifically, a gut-punch 60% tariff. I mean, the man said it himself. Tariffs are his favorite word, and it's clear he's really going to use that hammer now to make deals stick.
That's right, Duke. It's a radical escalation in protectionist policy, and he's using it as a lever to reshuffle decades of trade dependency. This idea of a universal tariff could change how the US engages globally. But specifically, the 60% tariff on Chinese imports is significant. It directly targets China's trade dominance, especially in areas like consumer electronics, smartphones, even critical supplies for advanced technologies.
Yeah, but China's no slouch when it comes to hitting back. They've already flexed their muscle before, targeting US industries like soybean farmers and aerospace. But this time, I hear they're pulling out the serious stops, controlling exports of critical materials for, what was it, EV batteries and semiconductors?
Precisely. According to reports, they're tightening the noose on materials like lithium and cobalt, which are essential to manufacturing electric vehicles and high-tech gadgets. And this hurts not just the automotive giants, but disrupts a whole range of supply chains. Companies will need to explore alternative sourcing, but targeting China's efficiencies on this scale is no small task.
Still, you gotta admit, Vikram, Trump's hitting the problem head-on. Look at the reshoring movement. Companies like Foxconn cutting dependence on Chinese labor, swapping out Chinese staff for Taiwanese workers to keep operations in places like India rolling. That's the kind of tactic we need. Clean system, no loopholes.
I see your point, Duke. Foxconn is a prime example of how organizations are pivoting due to geopolitical challenges. But the bigger question is whether these moves can scale in time. US manufacturing is adapting, but it's a long road to matching China's infrastructure and workforce capabilities. And let's not forget the potential costs. Reshoring isn't cheap, and ultimately, consumers might foot the bill.
Yeah, but that's the price tag for independence. The way I see it, you gotta take the hit today to win the real fight tomorrow.
Indeed, Duke. And all eyes are on how these policies unfold because the ripple effects will be felt across industries and borders. But these immediate consequences are only a small piece of the puzzle. So, Duke, as these ripple effects start to take shape, the automotive industry stands out as a prime example. It's heavily integrated across borders, especially in North America, where parts are shipped back and forth multiple times during production. A 25% tariff on every crossing could send vehicle costs spiraling out of control, and that's just scratching the surface of the disruptions.
Oh, I know. And it's not just numbers, it's livelihoods. You slam that kind of tax on the industry, and what happens? Plants shut down. Jobs evaporate. I bet Canadian suppliers are sweating bullets right now with slim margins to begin with. A 5% increase might hurt them, but 25%? That's a knockout punch.
Exactly, Duke. And the ripple effects reach the US as well. Our manufacturers rely on Canadian parts. We're talking higher production costs feeding directly into consumer prices. This strain on interconnected supply chains is massive.
And speaking of economic punches, have you seen what's happening with farming? Farmers in the Midwest lost their foothold in China's market to Brazil. Soybeans, one of our strongest exports, just handed over to competitors because of retaliatory trade moves.
Yes, it's worrying. Brazil and Argentina have gained market share that might be gone for good. Meanwhile, China's moving towards Airbus, another industry hit, as American aircraft manufacturers like Boeing face reduced demand. The impact spreads far beyond the fields into other key sectors of our economy.
And don't forget tech, Vikram. The semiconductor industry's staring down some rough seas, too. Tariffs on chips and restricted flows of key materials, like gallium and lithium. That's like kneecapping our innovation engines.
That's a major point, Duke. Allies like Japan and Taiwan are stepping up their production capacities, but redefining supply chains at this scale takes time and investment. The CHIPS Act may help, but whether we can catch up before the fallout takes a more permanent toll is the pressing concern.
It's a fight worth fighting, though. If this pushes us to diversify and strengthen alliances, we're in better shape in the long run. The way to win global power isn't by playing nice, it's by being prepared.
A valid perspective, Duke. However, striking the right balance between economic resilience and protectionism is no easy task. The stakes are undoubtedly high, across all these sectors. Duke, before we dive deeper into sector-specific implications, let's step back and take a broader view. These trade tensions, as we've discussed, are not just economic skirmishes. They're part of a much larger geopolitical chess game. Rising frictions with countries like China ripple into every sector we've mentioned. And when you throw hotspots like Taiwan and Ukraine into the mix, the stakes for the US climb sharply.
Yeah, it's all interconnected, Vikram. You pull one thread and the whole web shakes. China's eyeing Taiwan, and Russia's already knuckles deep in Ukraine. It's chaos. And let's not forget, when we show internal cracks, our rivals see opportunities. That's rule one in combat. Spot the weakness. Exploit it.
You're absolutely right, Duke. Internal discord like rising populism and economic unrest can be as dangerous as external pressures. History has shown us that vulnerable democracies, when divided, often become targets for external interference.
Exactly. And speaking of discord, here's where I lean on my experience in military logistics. Back during my deployments, trade disruptions weren't just annoyances, they were mission-critical risks. One missing shipment, and the whole operation could stall. That's what we're playing with here, but on a global scale.
That's a strong analogy, Duke. The global economy operates like a supply chain. One weak link, whether it's a blocked tariff agreement or a downed production line in Taiwan, and the ripple effects are felt everywhere. This puts renewed emphasis on international collaboration and contingency planning.
But collaboration only works if you've got leverage, Vikram. And these tariffs, these trade wars, they're like sharpening your tools. You don't win by being reactive, you win by being proactive, by making sure you're always one step ahead.
I take your point, Duke. But sharpening tools needs careful strategy. Overextending, whether through tariffs or aggressive stances, risks alienating allies and sparking unintended consequences. The goal should be stability amidst competition, don't you think?
I'll give you that. That balance is key. But man, I just can't shake the feeling that we need to toughen up, prepare way better. Sitting ducks aren't winning any battles, economic or otherwise.
And that's the takeaway, isn't it? Strength, preparation, but with calculated restraint. This era of escalating tensions, whether internal or external, demands both vigilance and adaptability.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Vikram. This ain't a one-and-done fight. It's long-term. But if we play our cards right, there's a world where the U.S. walks out stronger.
Absolutely. And on that note, we conclude our discussion on tariffs, trade, and the geopolitical stakes ahead. Thanks for joining us and for sticking with us through this deep dive into one of the most critical issues of our time.
Yeah, folks, stay sharp and keep thinking forward. Until next time.